You're listening to the Screeners Podcast Network.
From the big screen to the small screen and everything in between, this is the Screeners Podcast, where all media is appreciated, but none is safe.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Screeners Podcast. I'm Daniel, and I'm very excited today because we have a very special guest with us. Paul Walter Hauser plays Shawn Eckardt in the movie I, Tonya, which tells the story of Tonya Harding, competitive figure skater and one of the most enigmatic figures of the 90s. Paul, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having me on the Screeners Podcast.
So, I, Tonya is such a great movie and obviously getting a lot of awards attention. And I think it's safe to say that a lot of people are singling you out for a scene-stealing performance. How does it kind of feel to have a lot of that praise coming your way?
I mean, it's cool, man. As an actor, I think I can speak for a lot of actors, everywhere, both coasts. When you're trying to do it professionally, you just hope you get a speaking part. And then once you start getting speaking parts, you hope you get a good character because you want to learn and you want to sink your teeth into something and you want to prove yourself. But after you kind of sink your teeth in and get a good character or two, then it's like, oh, I hope I get to do the good work. You hope the really great script comes along. You hope the really great actor wants to work opposite you. And this is one of those moments that you're never guaranteed. And to have this moment meant the world to me. It's been such a joy, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's safe to say you had all of those things. You had an incredible cast, incredible script. And so what were some of your first interactions with the project? First getting the script, audition process, kind of walk me through how you landed the role.
Yeah, I was shooting or filming a pilot in Vancouver called A Midsummer's Nightmare. It was for A&E Studios and Lifetime. And the show was pretty good. Really, really I was just having fun with my cast members. I met all these amazing people like Dominic Monaghan and Jake Robinson and Chelsea Gilligan, all these really great actors. And we were kind of settling in thinking this is going to be our life. The show will get picked up and we'll do 5-6 seasons of it and we'll all be best friends. And I was getting used to that idea. And as we were wrapping the show, I got an audition for this film. And it said, it's a director's session. You're going to audition in front of Craig Gillespie. The script was on the Blacklist, which for those that don't know, the Blacklist is a prestigious list of screenplays that people love in Hollywood each year. And then Allison Janney and Margot Robbie were attached. So, right out the gate, without even reading the screenplay, it felt like a very important, at least culturally important project that I would want to be a part of. And then, of course, I read the script and was over the moon and knew that I could do a lot with this character. I could both make him sympathetic to a certain degree and also try to be really funny and add some levity to a movie that has plenty of dark spots.
Yeah, well, you certainly did that. And what was it like? Craig Gillespie's a great director, and then, like you said, Margot Robbie, she starred in the film and produced it. Sebastian Stan, and Allison freaking Janney.
Yeah.
What was it like working with this amazing cast and crew?
Well, I was a big fan of Lars and the Real Girl. I tend to gravitate toward quirky, funny indie films that have a lot of heart and have a lot of great performances, something like All the Real Girls that David Gordon Green made early in his career, something like Little Miss Sunshine. Those are just kind of my wheelhouse in movies.
Yeah. And
knowing Craig had already pulled that off and then thinking he could try to do it with this period piece about the most disgraced athlete in the history of sports,
right.
It was so interesting, and I kind of believed in it right out the gate. Like, this is a great movie. It hadn't even been made, and I was like, this is totally my type of movie.
Right.
As far as the acting goes, Margot's such a newly minted superstar, kind of like, the Jennifer Lawrence before her. She's having this great moment, and I thought, what an honor to get to play opposite her amidst this moment, and which will continue, but I just mean moment as in certain actors have that breakout that then kind of steamrolls, and this felt like the performance that would help her go from maybe just the 15 minutes of fame superstar to like solidified Hollywood great, and I think that's exactly what it's done. As far as Sebastian Stan, he's such a pretty, intimidating looking guy. I've seen pictures of him, but I hadn't met him, you know?
Right.
I hadn't met him. So in my head, I'm like the Zach Galifianakis, Andy Richter type, and am I going to gel with this Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise type?
Right.
I'm going to find out he's such a sweet, humble, funny, weird guy. He and I fit in pretty effortlessly. And that was a joy, because for one thing, I'm one of these people who I want everyone to like me. It's some pathetic, thing that's ingrained in my brain. But also, you want to get along with your co-stars, and every project I've ever done, TV or film, I always walk away with kind of one new friend, somebody you actually hang out with and keep in touch with, and I was so pleased that he was that guy. And as far as Allison goes, I mean, the work speaks for itself. She already has 2 decades of brilliant work, stage, screen, and TV. But I just didn't know she was capable of playing someone so odious, because I'm used to loving her.
Right.
I'm used to, laughing with her, laughing at her. And this movie shows you somebody you've seen before, somebody who's so embittered by life and circumstance that they take it out on those who are nearest and dearest to them. And I think for her it was a welcomed aside from all that she's done in the past. And then for us, the audience, it's a treat to kind of see her in a new light and know that she's capable.
Yeah.
Because if she can do this, what the hell else can she do? I'd love
Right.
to see her. I'd love to see her go do an Aronofsky film, do what Ellen Burstyn did, in Requiem or something. Bring it on. I think she's one of the greatest living actresses, and this movie really highlights her.
Absolutely. Yeah, no argument from me. And everyone sort of has at least some knowledge of the Tonya Harding story and the incident, as the movie calls it. So going into the project, what did you know about Shawn Eckardt and his role in the whole thing?
Oh man, I knew very little. How much did you know? You're younger than me, right?
I am.
How
yeah,
old are you?
I was very young. I was only like 2 or 3 when this whole incident happened. So
yeah, so you're like goo goo gaga, team Tonya.
Right.
I knew very little too. I think I have vivid snapshots of the local news doing their stories, and because I grew up in Saginaw, Michigan, which is 2 hours away from Detroit, where the incident happened.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I have these little snapshots of Oprah and Ricky Lake and Sally, Jesse Raphael, and Maury Povich, because it was, kind of talk show candy for a long time.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what the hell went on. I was like, if for all I knew, Tonya Harding, just as the movie portrays, Tonya Harding could have whacked her.
Right.
But of course that wasn't the case.
Right. And so did you, what was your process of playing a real person? First of all, what is that like? And then second of all, what was your process of kind of doing research or looking in? Who did you talk to? Those sort of things.
Yeah. I think I'm saying so much. Sorry, I just woke up. I couldn't sleep last night, so I used the bathroom. I got up, realized I had to call you, made a K-cup of peppermint bark coffee from the holidays, and now I'm shirtless sitting in my living room talking to you.
Hey, I'm honored.
I think I'm pretty sharp for being disoriented. This is pretty sharp interview.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Okay, good. Sorry, what was the question? I'm sorry. Oh, playing a real person.
Yes.
Playing a real person. I love the idea of playing a real person because as a wannabe, I say a wannabe. I always feel like a wannabe. I never feel like a real actor, even though I've been doing it for, 8 years off and on here. But, when you hear biopic or, real story, true story, the idea of playing a real person is kind of what actors hope to do. It's a challenge and it's a responsibility, and it's something we all, I think, want to do. So to play a real person is always exciting and challenging, but also what was good for me was I wasn't playing the person in the spotlight. I couldn't be judged nearly as much as someone like Margot or Sebastian. I was, this guy wasn't seen by that many people except for his Diane Sawyer interview, which is now becoming kind of iconic and having a life of its own. But for me, it was going in to see Craig Gillespie in the audition and knowing my take on the character and my take on the guy. And my assumption about him is he was fully invested in his lifestyle choices.
Yeah.
So if he said he went to Qatar and had a girlfriend overseas and bought pipe tobacco from a Russian mobster, I'm gonna choose to believe that because no one's gonna buy it unless I buy it. The actor, me, Paul.
Right.
So I would look in the mirror and do the scenes and practice, and I would look for little physical tells that would say like, this guy's lying, but he knows it because he's nervous a little bit, but you don't know it because he's just weird. So what he might be doing that would be looked at as some poker bluff tell, you won't know because he's just awkward.
Right.
So I was really working on finding the tone of believability and kind of having some physical things. Like, I don't know if you saw it in the film, you probably watched it under a microscope, but every time I'm talking to Sebastian, I'm trying to be serious. I kind of put my hands in a karate chop, and I'm like trying to point out things. Like when I say I'm 4 steps ahead of everyone, it's like the hand is like that. It's like I sort of turn into, he tries to turn on an adult. He's a child. What do children do? They impersonate adults. They aren't adults. They try to act as if they were. So there are those moments where Shawn kind of turns on his adult and tries to kind of keep it together. But then you see cracks in the facade, like where he's about to cry when Tonya totally outs him at the ice rink and says, "You're a fat gas bag, nobody virgin who gets laughed at and drives a crappy car and lives with his parents." You know, that's one of the few moments where you see Shawn is who he really is. But then in that moment, it's like, gulp, you better put big boy pants on again because you're not what she says.
Right.
You don't believe that. You're a counterterrorism expert, and you gotta, you're reminding yourself of that all day long.
And that complexity really comes across because it sounds so silly because the character kind of is inherently silly, but exactly what you said, like you can see all of those layers in your performance where he's just ridiculous, but you believe it. And so it's wonderful. And what sold it for me is because I didn't know who Shawn Eckardt was. I love that there was the actual clip, the interviews at the end.
Yeah, how fun is that?
And because it made me, the whole time I was watching, I was like, this character is so unbelievable. And then you watch that clip and you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how he was. So I loved that. I thought that was fantastic.
It's the truth is often stranger than fiction.
Right.
And I think you really understand that toward the end of the film when you get to take a peek at the real people. And I'll say this real quick. One of my favorite living actors, who I think he's the closest thing we might have to Robin Williams today, is Steve Carell.
Yeah.
Because Steve Carell really understands how to do comedy and drama, and I think the best part about it is I think he understands how similar they are. A lot of it really is about desire, commitment, insecurities, and nuances. And you're really just building a character in comedy or drama. I think one of the best comedy performances of all time is probably Randy Quaid in the National Lampoon Vacation movies with Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
And it's because you buy that guy. You buy that poor, unaware, painfully creepy and awkward guy because he exists.
Right.
But that role isn't nearly as funny or effective if Randy Quaid isn't making a bunch of choices along the way. That the guy has a runny nose, or that he's got a shifty eye, or that he, whatever he's doing, it's all intentional. So with Shawn, I wanted to be funny because I love being funny. I love trying to be funny, but it's all very intentional, or at least I hope, as far as trying to make choices to be distinct and different.
And I think you definitely succeeded there. So Shawn is no longer alive, so obviously you weren't able to meet the real person. Were you able to meet any of the other real characters from the movie?
No, I actually did meet Shawn.
Oh, you did?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I was very confused for a second. I was going to roll with it.
I wanted to elicit confusion. I thought it was funny. I think Margot and Sebastian probably had it worse than me by meeting them.
Sure.
It's someone would say it was better. They had it better because they had more to work with. But as an actor, you also don't want to be given too much. It's almost like direction from a director. You don't want to be bogged down by line readings and too many choices of their sort of mental construct. You'd prefer to play on the playground yourself and find the performance as you go, which is what most actors do. Not that Margot and Sebastian didn't do that. I'm sure they did. I just mean I think they were given quite a bit and then had to sift through and figure out what to focus on. For me, it was I contacted the guy who turned him into the FBI, this guy by the name of Eugene Saunders, who's now a theological professor at a Bible college in Portland, Oregon.
Huh.
I just heard his name on a couple different broadcasts of people saying, this is the guy who turned him in. So I Googled Eugene Saunders, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, found him, left a message on his machine saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, would you help me out? And he called me back and kind of gave me his story and told me that, this is who I knew Shawn to be while I was at college taking a class with him. And I kind of took some of that food for thought and then churned it out into the performance.
Wow, that's interesting. And so as far as everybody else, speaking of the real people from the stories, Allison Janney just won Best Supporting Actress at the Globes last week. Rightfully so, very deserved.
Congrats to Allison. No slouch.
And there was actually a little bit of controversy online. Tonya was at the awards, and Allison thanked her. And so, some people, it didn't sit right with some people thanking her and showing her completely as a victim. I just was curious of your take on that whole situation. Is she somebody that needs to be reevaluated in pop culture and in history?
I guess I'm confused at the controversy. What's the controversy? People think that Allison shouldn't have thanked Tonya?
I think the gist of the controversy is that she is portraying Tonya kind of fully as a victim,
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the reason Stephen told the film from multiple points of view is because the jury will always be out. We'll never have conclusive evidence of exactly what happened. That's just not going to happen. So this film, if anything, it gives a point of view of someone who, whether they did something bad or not, they were a victim of abuse.
Yeah.
And, that's sort of the point of an adaptation of a documentary, which is almost what it is. It's almost an adaptation of the 30 for 30 book.
Right.
A more intimate take. And you can't pull any punches. You got to just tell the real story. I think we're in a point in our culture right now where people are everybody's so upset that people tend to shout, not because what they're shouting about is worthy of a shout, but because they need to shout.
Sure.
So I think with this film, because I've heard people online too who are like, there's so many needle drops. There's like 80 songs in the movie, and it's like, why is that a bad thing? Like what?
Yeah.
Like what? Why are you guys so worked up over a soundtrack, you weirdos? So I think you'll never please everybody. Is Tonya Harding a victim? Of course she's a victim of abuse.
Yeah.
Was she involved in the attack? Maybe, if only by a sin of omission, where she knew something was going on but didn't investigate or say anything. So, do I think she's 100% innocent? Absolutely not. I don't believe that for a second.
Right.
But do I think her story is worthy of being told, and that it should echo with people kind of telling telltale signs of abuse, that it's worth investigating and making sure children or even teenagers in that case are being taken care of or taken out of those situations. Because I think Tonya Harding there were a lot of people around her. I mean, she was always skating, she was always out and about, she had all these fans. She openly spoke about her mother beating her in a short documentary back when she was a teenager. So people, people can say that, oh, they didn't know this was going on, but I think people did know, and she was never really rescued from her broken home.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's obviously very complex, and I think the movie does a great job of kind of showing the complexity of her life and her upbringing.
By the way, the fact that there's a controversy about any of this, it just goes to show how important movies are to our culture.
Yeah.
People are so dissatisfied with their marriages, so dissatisfied with their churches, their politics. Like, so many things have failed them. The film, in a weird way, becomes a lot more personal because it's telling stories that we want to believe in or that we want to rely on. So people get very invested, and I understand that. And it's a true story, so it comes with it a certain amount of attachments. But at the end of the day, it's just a point of view of a film. So hopefully people don't bury the film on that alone. Hopefully they see it and judge for themselves a little bit.
I absolutely agree. I, Tonya is definitely a film you need to see. And Paul, you have a few other great projects coming up. You're in Super Troopers 2, which comes out in a couple months. And you're also in a project that sounds extremely interesting. You're in The Black Klansman. Spike Lee is directing that. John David Washington, Adam Driver, Topher Grace. It sounds like an extremely interesting film. Is there anything you can tell us about that project?
Yeah, Super Troopers I did before I, Tonya. It's not a huge role, but it's like a fun little pivotal joke moment in the film. I have one or two scenes, and then for the record, Super Troopers is one of my 5 favorite comedies of all time. So
Nice.
That was just beyond dream come true to work with the Broken Lizard guys and to have a small place on that piece of comedy history.
Yeah.
And then I would say Black Klansman came to me right after the Toronto Film Festival. I had just gotten done celebrating I, Tonya for a 3-4 day weekend of just wonderful food and great meetings with wonderful people, and everybody giving our film critical praise and getting to watch the movie for the first time. I was on this crazy high from the weekend, and I came back, and a day later I had a director's session in front of Spike Lee for Black Klansman. So I really think that the confidence that we had from TIFF carried over, and I walked in really confident in front of Spike, who's a very intimidating man for being probably 5'5", and he's just so brilliant, and he's so cool, and he's so interesting. And when he makes a film, it always makes noise.
Yeah.
Now, it's not always great noise, but he's still the dude who made Malcolm X and Do the Right Thing and 25th Hour and Inside Man. And I mean, he's really one of these directors. I think, unless you're crazy, every actor wants to get the chance to work with him. So it was a joy working with him. We got along really well. All my scenes are kind of with Adam Driver and Nick Tetsuro and these two wonderful guys I met on the film, Jasper Pakkanen and Ryan Eggold. And I think this movie is going to be sort of like a new version, a new age version of Mississippi Burning, the Alan Parker film. So I hope to go see it, and hopefully the power behind Spike Lee and Adam Driver will make this a really loud film that a lot of people see. Awesome.
Well, that sounds awesome. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see more from you.
Thanks.
Like I said, I, Tonya is fantastic. And it's in theaters now, theaters everywhere, so make sure you go out and see it as soon as you can so you can see Paul's fantastic performance as well as everybody else's performance, because it's a great movie. Paul, it was such a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Daniel, it was my pleasure. Thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for having me. And for those who are thinking of seeing the movie but are splitting their time between The Commuter with Liam Neeson and maybe a belated showing of Coco or Ferdinand, let me tell you, I, Tonya is unlike every other movie in theaters. You better go see it before it leaves.
I can't agree more. Awesome. Paul, thanks so much.
All right, guys. Much love. Thank you.
And thanks so much for listening. As always, you can follow us on social media. On Facebook, search The Screeners Podcast, and on Twitter, @ScreenersCast. You can also follow Paul at Paul W. Hauser on Twitter. Make sure you go see I, Tonya in theaters now. We'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap. You've heard what the screeners had to say. Now you be the critic. Head over to screenerspodcast.com and let us know what you think. See you next time.